So, 14 years after The Sopranos ended, we got a film detailing the rise and fall of these characters set in the late 1960s. The question is, who asked for it and did we need it? I'm here to talk about The Many Saints of Newark from 2021. So as I've mentioned recently, probably numerous times, I just kind of watched the entire Sopranos series for the first time. And not surprisingly, I loved it. Truly amazing series, and it can easily hold its own, in my opinion, with the best work in the mafia genre, like the Godfather or Goodfellas. One of the things I appreciated the most about it was that it was set in the early 2000s, which was pretty much the last years of the mafia as we knew it. We already had mafia movies set in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I thought it was very cool and unique seeing something, much more modern. So The Many Saints of Newark starts in the late 1960s, like I said, and it kind of goes into the early 70s, and that right there gives a different feel than The Sopranos. It came out in 2021, like I said, and I never really noticed anyone talking about it at the time. Over the last few years, I've seen a few reviews, all being fairly negative, which I remember thinking was strange, given the cult status of The Sopranos. So I picked up a Blu-ray copy a couple of months ago, but I wanted to wait until I finished the series to watch it. So it was directed by Alan Taylor, who had directed like 9 episodes of The Sopranos, so this is a good sign. And it was written by the creator of the series himself, David Chase, along with Lawrence Connor, who directed, he had written like, I think 3 episodes of The Sopranos, so these are also good signs. I mean, this all seemed right to me, The pieces seem to fit, but it just doesn't really feel much like The Sopranos, like I had hoped it would. I mean, of course, it's going to look slicker with all the, technological advancements we've had over the last 20 years, but I would have preferred kind of a slightly, maybe grittier look. And story-wise, I mean, this is basically just a prequel. You get to see Tony Soprano as a child and then eventually as a teenager, and so you get to experience a little bit of his childhood. This, of course, wasn't entirely new, as we saw a decent amount of that in the series, and it was done better. Tony's played by James Gandolfini's son, Michael, which is actually pretty cool. He does a very, very decent job. So, I mean, you have Tony as a sweet, well-meaning kid, instead of the man he would eventually become. And you also get to see Dickie Moltisanti, Christopher's father, which you never saw in the show. You always heard a good bit about him, but you never saw him. I always wanted to know more about this character, so I was excited to experience that. And speaking of Christopher, because I had to mention this, the film is narrated. This is one of the things that I think is kind of weird about this movie. It's narrated by Christopher Moltisanti after he's dead. Like, he's narrating a film as a ghost, even though he wasn't even born yet. Made no sense. It was cool to hear Michael Imperioli's voice, don't get me wrong, but what the hell? Is it just me? I thought that was so fucking strange. And he is played here by Alessandro Nivola, who does a really good job as well, I gotta say. I think he gives one of the better performances here, if not the best. I wasn't previously familiar with this actor, so I was interested in seeing what he would bring to the table. And this film also touches on the black gangs of the time, which is really cool because it's something you didn't really see much on the series. I mean, if there's one thing that blacks and Italians had in common is that they were both fucked over by, white Americans historically. They both had to fight hard for their place in society. Leslie Odom Jr. plays Harold, a young black man who works for Dickie but wants to make a name for himself instead, take a piece of the pie. His story arc is very cool, but not properly fleshed out, in my opinion. You also get Johnny Soprano, played by John Bernthal, who I'm a big fan of, actually. Livia Soprano, played by Vera Farmiga, who I also love. And Dick Moltisanti Sr., Hollywood Dick, as he's known as, played by the legend Ray Liotta. And Ray Liotta also played his brother, Dick Moltisanti's brother, Salvatore, which was really fucking weird, I gotta say. I mean, maybe they were twins? I have to imagine. I don't remember that ever being addressed. So these actors all gave pretty good performances. You get to see a ton of other characters too, like Junior Soprano, Paulie Walnuts, Silvio Dante, Big Pussy, and some others. And that was one of my biggest problems here. None of these characters were very good. I don't know if it was just a bad casting job, but every one of them just constantly pulled me out of the film. It's probably also far too many characters for a 2-hour film. Kind of like we got the Marvel problem going on here, if I were to give it a comparison. This should have been a mini-series instead, to say the least. There were also way too many cliches, so many just lazy callbacks to The Sopranos. Got like young Artie Bucco talking about restaurants, and Junior's, famous varsity athlete line, y'all know what I mean. It all just came off to me as lazy, unoriginal, and uninspired. I'm gonna now kind of go into some spoilers here, just as a warning. So, The Sopranos is David Chase's baby, obviously. He gave it to us, but it's his legacy, and he can do what he wants with it. But if you're going to make things canon, all these years later, tread carefully, man. The Sopranos series means a hell of a lot to a lot of people. And having Junior order the hit on Dickie Moltisanti kind of left a weird taste in my mouth. I don't know if it's just me. I just didn't, I thought that was kind of weird. I mean, he ordered a hit on Tony years later for petty shit too, so I guess it's not a huge stretch. I just thought it was kind of weird that it was, in The Sopranos, it was never mentioned or hinted at or anything like that. This was something made canon literally just for this movie. So I think I'll highlight the positives here, because ultimately, I don't think this film is very good. Like I said, I had always wanted to, know more about Dickie Moltisanti, and Alessandro Nivola, give a very solid performance. Leslie Odom Jr., John Bernthal, Michael Gandolfini, Vera Farmiga, and Ray Liotta give also good performances. Pretty much everyone and everything else was underwhelming. It felt forced, not well written. Oh, and the part where Johnny Soprano's mad at Livia and shoots her hair with this pistol in the car was one of the dumbest things I think I've ever seen in any movie. I'm sure a lot of people really miss The Sopranos and would love to have more, but this was a disservice to the fans. They deserve better. I'm giving The Many Saints of Newark a 5 out of 10. Cheers, guys.